Hi everyone. Today we're talking to Boris, who is our data expert with a great experience and CTO of our client Carbon38, who is really passionate about data.
Absolutely, that would be me, for sure.
So, how do you like it in sunny LA?
Well, today is not super sunny. It's kind of dramatic sky out there, but usually it's not the way it is today. But it's pretty cool.
Okay, great. So Carbon38 was always one of the most fast-growing companies and companies who use data quite a lot. But can you tell a few words why and what you do?
Okay, sure. Maybe a little bit about Carbon38, what we do.
Yeah,
as a company. Yeah, for sure.
So what you do as a company?
All right, so Carbon38 is a 7-year young LA startup that deals in women activewear with a very strong fashion twist. So if you think about Lululemon, or if you think about Nike, for example, Nike would be a performance activewear, and Carbon38 makes a big emphasis on fashion. I'm here 7 years. No, sorry. I work for Carbon38 about 6 years. I started here as CTO for hire, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and then it became a full-time job for me. And I've been here almost 6 years, almost since day one. And my role here is the CDO. Also, I had the product development, also responsible for the data of the company.
And as I understand, Carbon does quite a lot of e-commerce business, so customers and all data is very important for you.
For sure. Yeah, so Carbon is a fairly typical e-commerce company. We started completely online, 100% online, and now we ventured into a little bit of offline. We have 2 stores, but 95% of business is done online. So the customer, all the data about the customer is very, very important. We like to think about the company as very data-driven. Data is being consumed in every single department of the company. It's widely used, and we make all the decisions based on data. We may come up with the hypothesis based on some gut feeling and experiences, but ultimately, data is the judge. Data trumps the intuition. It's not a phrase that I like to use. We like to verify all the decision by data, and also whatever we do, any projects that we implement, we follow up with the data analysis and what this project done for us.
Okay. And as I know, you have more data experience than many new startups.
Yeah, you can probably say so, if I can say so myself. I've been doing startups for, I would say, 20 plus years. My first startup was back in San Francisco Bay Area. It was Netflix, very small company.
Maybe somebody knows it.
Maybe some people heard about them. So I started there. I was engineer, the hire number 11 at the company. Was one of the founding engineers responsible for website development. So pretty much anything on a website, from subscription, your account management, your queue management, all that good stuff was under me. Except 2 major areas which were not under me, which was Netflix recommendation engine, and the dynamic algorithm allocation was also not under me. Right? And then after that I moved into various startups, and just once I started, just continue going, and then moved to LA, worked for another company in fintech industry, then went back to another startup, was doing movie, which you never heard of, you never will. Then back to e-commerce, was doing subscription e-commerce with Shoedazzle, and then started consulting a little bit, and then finally ended up at Carbon38's full-time CTO.
Okay, so as Carbon is e-commerce company, we can say that you're half of IT company, at least. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same way.
I used to say that if you are on internet, you're already a technology company, whether you like it or not.
Okay. So, and if we talk about role of CTO working with data and business, I think that there are now less and less companies who work without data or make decisions. So what do you think about it?
Well, I think the data became a very big kind of buzzword maybe about 7-10 years ago. A lot of everyone is talking about the data. It's a really big buzzword. There special data platform. There's a proliferation of tools and platforms and data storages. It become very easy to collect a lot of data. It's become very easy to have various data sources. There are platforms that call themselves customer data platforms that claim to collect a lot of data, and they do that too as well. As the data is becoming much more easily obtainable, and it's not solving the issue of data per se, right? And so when I think about the CTO role and CIO, if you will, working with data, there's still a couple big issues that needs to be addressed. First of all, is this abundance of data creates an issue of data clarity, data cleanliness, that brings up the notions of one source of truth, because the data is stored on companies' own databases. The data is stored on various vendor portals. The data is stored in various analytic tools. The data is stored at the 3PL partners, and so on and so forth, right? And so when people start using reports and trying to gain some insights from all these various platforms, it might not correspond necessarily to what you see in your internal database, right? So that's number one. How do you bring all this data together in a meaningful way? And some of the tools are claiming to be able to do that. Definitely. But that's number one. So how do you make sure within the organization there's one true source of data, that everyone is looking at the same reports, and if you calculate project margin one way, that everyone knows what the formula is. And
usually I would add that each department calculates margin each way, and marketing, sales, supplies, and so on. And in the end of the year, only finance department has some problems with margin.
Right, exactly.
In a strange way.
Yes, exactly right. So that's number one aspect. So cleanliness and cohesiveness of data, right? The other problem is the other issue rather that needs to be addressed is all the latest regulations that came to light. For example, the GDPR in Europe last year, the California is doing something very similar this year with CCPA. So the governance of data, the very very upfront with the users and consumers, what's being collected, what's being stored, what's being sold potentially, what's being shared with whom, has to be really clearly defined in companies' privacy policy, and it's not a small thing. It's not a small thing at all. And it takes a lot of effort on IT personnel because consumer nowadays can request a copy of the data being stored, shared with them. They can request a deletion of their accounts, deletion of the data. And since data exists not just in the database, it exists in logs, it exists in backups, it exists on the vendor sides, it becomes pretty significant endeavor potentially. And so a lot of companies, bring to light the role of CDO, the Chief Data Officer, who one of the big.
Next question.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. And that person is responsible for putting together data policy, among other things, right? So that's number one. The other thing is actually, as I was saying at the beginning, bringing all this data together from various sources in a meaningful way, with the purpose of gaining some insight from it, actionable insights, very important, right? So that's, I think, the big role of CTO in working with the data, in providing business with actionable insight. That's the key. That's, I think, the key word.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I see from one point we have that you should be really careful with personal data. But from another point, each company wants to make next best offer, personal proposals, and so on. Yep. So it's really now becoming hard for CDO to keep with it. And on the other hand, what do you think that from one point, there are so many tools to analyze data, but on other hand, and everyone is talking about self-service BI and so on, but on other hand, data is growing so rapidly and the number of sources. So what do you think? Who win, data or BI tools?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So one of the other, my favorite phrases is, any tool is only as good as the people using it, right? So the abundance of various data platforms and various tools. You have companies who provide you the platforms with data warehouse build out. You have companies who provide you all in one, ready to go customer data platforms. But still, it's not solving business solution completely. You have to have people operating those tools or gaining insights from the tools, right? So no matter how good the tools is, you have to have people who deal with the tool, who provide requirements, who come up with hypotheses, and who act on insights gained from the data. So I think to answer your question, who wins BI, or what was the question?
Who wins data or different data tools and so on?
I think at the end of the day, you still need smart people operating the good tools, right? Okay. I think that's where it's going. So, the role of the good modern day CTO is to understand what tools are available, what platforms are available, so they can build something meaningful there on those platforms, bring the data in together in a cohesive manner, but then have someone on the business side who can understand the functionality, understand the capability of the tool, and will go in with some idea of what they're trying to gain from the tool, right? Okay. Come up with a hypothesis and then build experiments potentially.
I think it's really good answer because the question is really hard.
The question is hard, yes. Yes.
Okay. So, and talking about maybe more to business, can you give several examples how data helps business to increase revenue, optimize inventory, and so on?
Sure. When I'm thinking about the potential of good BI and machine learning, for that matter, I think in terms of three big kind of topics. One is the personalization and optimization of presentation for every single user. So one-on-one personalization. That can be only done by gathering a lot of behavioral data, not just transactional data, and putting it in a model, and then start experimenting and optimizing, coming up with hypotheses, coming up with user segments and clusters, and coming up with the product cluster, affinity of product cluster to user clusters, all that good stuff, and with the goal of gaining again some actionable insight and optimizing, personalizing experience for every single user, not just by the segment, but even on a one-to-one basis. So that's number one on the website.
And can I ask you, why do to make an offer for the same offer for every user? Well, how it helps revenue growth, margin, and so on?
When we're talking about personalization, we think about it in a much wider sense than just making a personal offer, right? Okay. I think the most important, in fact, we try not to do any offers, right? Well, we try to make sure that someone who comes to the site will see what we think they want to see. Okay. Based on the past experience, based on past browser experience, based on their exhibited behavior, make sure that they can find easily what they came here to find. Okay. So I think it's the most important thing. Obviously, there'll be times when we're dealing with specific segments of customers, then we'll have to come up with some offers. But that's not, that's the tool that is in the marketer's toolbox for sure, right? But we try to start by personalizing the experience, making the product discovery as easy as possible, making the size selection, for example, as easy as possible from the e-commerce site. Obviously, that's important. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, and second and third thing.
Yeah. So and then another couple things is. There's a lot of, so basically what I'm thinking about the data can answer a lot of big optimization question that business have. And so when I think about those areas, I think, okay, where is the biggest opportunity for optimizing the business major KPIs? And one of them, for example, is in managing open to buy for merchandisers, right? So ideally, when you buy a product and you need to decide how many pieces of each size you buy, ideally you would sell out of this style at the same time for all sizes. If you don't, then you have kind of quote unquote broken styles, which are really harder to promote on the site because a lot of people, some people will not find their sizes, so you will lose some visitors. You'll create not ideal experience for some of the customers. So ideally you would sell out of all the sizes at the same time. It's pretty much, I think, close to impossible to achieve. But I think data can help merchandisers get as close to ideal situation as possible. So that's one thing. Another thing is how do you predict the how a specific style will sell, right? There are some companies that try to answer that question by interviewing some users ahead of time, presenting them, potential styles that the company will buy or not. But I think if you can establish some sort of similarity between the past and future products, that might help you make more informed decisions into your buys. And then another big thing, as everyone is managing the sales, right? And so, how do you go into your markdowns? How many products and when do you go to your markdown? How many levels of markdowns do you have? This is kind of big areas rather of optimization that I think data can really help.
I think at least it's what really big companies do. So we should just keep up with them. And
absolutely.
So what we are talking about, I am sure you have a data strategy. Can you say a few words about it?
Sure. So when I think about data strategy, I can probably outline it a couple. I like to think in terms of bullet points when I usually come up with the answer. So, one bullet point is we need to figure out the platform for our data. There's abundance of offerings. There's Amazon, there's Google, all kinds of stuff. So I think what we're trying to do right now is to figure out what is the best platform for us from a number of perspectives and figure out the home for our future data warehouse. We're starting that with a proof of concept project with a small data warehouse build out that will evaluate technologies rather. And we'll see how it works, and then we expand that from that point onwards. But the final idea is that we're going to bring in the data from various sources. It's nothing novel about it. I mean, a lot of people are doing it, but for the small startup, we still need to do the same thing. So we need to build a large data warehouse, which will have a lot of transactional behavioral data, a lot of marketing data, marry it all together, and then start building from there.
So building a small data lake, maybe then the data ocean and so
something like that. And then the data galaxy.
Data galaxy is what is going on. And I also want to ask, how do you find working with us, with A2? Is it okay for you? Do you like it? And so on. What about our experience?
Right. Well, we started, 3 years ago about, and we're still working together, so that tells you something.
Good result,
It was kind of interesting how we found each other. I think when I was looking at BI tool at the time, I always tried to evaluate the tools by going to Gartner, Magic Quadrant, and I found 3 tools there. I remember, as it was yesterday, it was Qlik, Tableau, and Microsoft, and I tried Tableau and Qlik, and I kind of ended up with Qlik. I found you guys a provider for the, authorized provider, right? For Qlik implementations.
We start Qlik Select Partner.
Qlik Select Partner, yes. And like with any out of my projects, I start with a quick proof of concept project. I went really well.
Thank you.
And we developed, 6, 7 applications, big ones that the whole company is using since then. Great. So very happy. And then once that was done, we kind of extended our relationship, I'm sure know very well. and try to use you to help us build this mini data warehouse that I talked about just a minute ago.
Okay.
So
I hope we move more faster to DataOcean, and any working with any BI tools, instruments, and so on. So I think we would like to do everything to help you work better with data and make it more easy for your company. Thank you for your answers. They were really deep and interesting, and I think it should be useful for other companies.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't know if I said anything revolutionary, but mostly based on common sense and just my experience with e-commerce and understanding what's needed, what needs to be done.
Don't be shy with a small experience in data in startups.
Yeah, just 20 plus years.
Okay, yeah. So, thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.